Welcome back to the BestWorst16 podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Lewa. My next guest is an accomplished fashion model with Muse Model Management in New York City, but she also works with Milk in the UK and Select out of Chicago. I'm super excited to hear more about her story when it comes to this profession. I've seen some of her content about her trials in this competitive field, and I'm just so glad that she's taking time to share with me and the rest of the listeners her story a little bit more. Originally born and raised in Brazil, she moved to Portugal to start her modeling career. And as she's gone through her career, it sounds like she's reconceptualized and transformed herself to being authentically her through the work that she does. You can follow her at Ingrid_P. It's Medeiros on Instagram. Welcome, Ingrid Medeiros. And now tell me, I probably butchered your name. How do you say your last name?
It's okay. Hi. Thank you for having me. It's Medeiros.
Medeiros. Okay.
Yes, Medeiros.
Okay.
A lot of people has a little trouble saying it. It's totally fine. I'm just say Medeiros. Don't say the whole thing. Otherwise, we're going to be here all day.
So there's a longer name I saw online. What's the longer name?
Yeah, it's Ingrid Pereira de Medeiros.
Wow.
Okay, I told you, just say it.
Hey, hold on, let me give it a try.
Say Ingrid.
Ingrid Pereira?
Pereira de Medeiros.
De Medeiros. All right, very good. So my name is...
That was actually really good.
Thank you. So I was born in Uganda. My full name is Joshua Muhwana Samwiri Walewa. And we roll the R's too. So there's like this thing around rolling R's that feels a little comfortable, even though everything else in the language, I have no idea about my own language.
Hey, that's I feel like that's a half of the battle right there. Because I try to teach a lot of my friends to speak Portuguese, but the R's it just doesn't work for them.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what, fine.
Well, I appreciate it, and I'll call you Ingrid because that works for you for this
interview.
All right, so we gave you in the introduction, of course, I talked about your modeling career, and so if you can talk to the listeners a little more about what you're currently doing right now. So
right now, I'm in New York City, which is the city where all my dreams came true. Thank God. I have been working with amazing brands out here. I just done a campaign for MAC Cosmetics, which was a great stepping stone in my career because I did it as myself. They made the campaign revolving around each and every one of the models that they picked. And that was new. That has never happened to me before. So it was really cool. And I've been working with great brands out here like Nordstrom, Target, Sephora, Becca Cosmetics, and honestly, the list goes on. It has been an insane journey to get here. So yeah, that's what I've been doing lately. Just out here trying to make it.
Well, you teed me up really good for the second question I have for you is, I don't know much about getting into the modeling industry, and it seems like you've been doing it for a while. Can you talk us through your path to where you're at right now? Like, where did you start? How did you transition and how you got to where you're at right now?
I first started it when I was about 12, 13 years old. I started it in Portugal, in Lisbon. I was scouted out shopping with my mom, the cliche story. And that's when I first even figured it out that I wanted to be a model. It was when I was that young. I always looked at the ads and the commercials and all of the outdoors and then all of those things. And I always thought to myself, that looks nothing like me, not even a little bit. So what makes me think that I can be a model? And then that happened and I was like, okay, maybe I can. So I signed a contract with an agency in Lisbon. And then I straight up started working right out of the door. I was a very, very, very skinny child. And that worked perfect for them until it didn't, until I hit puberty. And then that's where all of my troubles started out there working as a straight size. And I say that in quotations because, seriously, what is straight size plus size at this point? We are all our own size. So just to put us in that little box was incredibly toxic for me. And I had it in my head, this is it. for me to achieve this dream, I have to be skinny. And that's when everything kind of went badly. I think I worked maybe a year before it all went real bad for me, particularly.
Wow. So tell me a little bit more about this. I don't know much about the industry. It sounds like they have these categories. Yes. And so stray size, you said, and plus size?
Stray size will be between size 0s to a 4. Plus size, it starts as a size 6, which is insane if you really think about. A size 6 woman is a skinny woman, and then we're still labeling it. We will have, nowadays we have more categories, which is like a fit model or, a beauty model or, and that's one of those things that in my work, I tried as much as I can to erase from the modeling industry is the labels, because I feel like they're very damaging. The moment that you stick a label on someone and say they're plus size, they will always achieve to just be plus size. And I think that we should be striving to be healthy, no matter what your size is. You don't need to be striving to be skinny to fit onto an ideal of beauty. It's incredibly damaging. And that's what did to me. When I was 13 years old, that whole idea that I needed to be a straight size model, that I needed to be skinny, it completely destroyed my mental health. And I can only imagine what's doing to the people watching the TV commercials, the magazines saying, this is beautiful, which means you're not. Right. Because a very small percentage of women out there are small, like naturally, without starving themselves. So you're basically telling 98% of women that they are not beautiful. Right. And that's what I wanted to change. Well, I'm glad you're doing that work. And I totally 100% agree with you. When I hear the idea that 6 and above is plus size, I've bought very few pieces of clothes items for women in the past as far as gifts are concerned. And I can tell you, I don't know if I've ever bought a size 6 for anybody. That sounds so tiny. And so, and then of course, as people become adults and we grow into our bodies and who we are, to be punished in the industry, it doesn't sound like that was fun. So now you've turned around and you've found a place and a space, especially with this MAC Cosmetics and others, to re-identify or maybe redefine what beauty is. Yes. Yeah. Very much so. I feel like my work today is completely different. I am no longer required, asked. I am no longer, it's no longer a requirement for me to not be anything other than myself. And we're going to get a little bit into it, of how the industry has been changing. Yeah. Because of amazing women like Ashley Graham, because of amazing women as Paloma or Jill, who is now making a huge wave for being just a size 10. And she's blowing up, taking the industry by storm. And they are changing what it really means to be beautiful. And that's amazing. And that's when I saw Ashley Graham for the first time, I cried because I was like, yes, that's what I want to do. I want to do what she's doing. I want to reinvent what we think about as beautiful. So yeah, it's been a crazy journey. Well, I'm guessing we'll get into this a little bit more, but yeah, I'm kind of curious from you. You spoke about a few names of people who are inspiring. And so what inspires you? Honestly, I have a lot of people that I admire, but the person who keeps things sticking for me, because I had to find a bigger meaning in all of it. I couldn't just get out of my bed every morning and think I'm doing this just because I want to do it. It wasn't enough for me. And I feel like the moment that my niece was born, that's when I stopped everything. I was like, okay, this is not a world I want her to grow up in. Yes. This is not a society that views women this way that I want her to be around. I suffered so much growing up and seeing those things and being told I wasn't enough, being told that, the weight that I see on a scale is what tells me my worth. And I do not want that for her. And that was my complete change point. So I think she is the one that I admire the most. Because I just know I'm changing life for her. I just got a photo of her with my campaign and I cried for 3 days. I was like, that's it. That's why I do this.
How old's your niece?
She's 5 now. She just turned 5.
One day she's going to listen to this, and I'm sure she's going to be so proud.
I hope so. Yeah,
I think so.
She's already I love her to death. Like, it's crazy. I'm so like, I drool with all of my nieces and nephews, but she's just amazing.
Sounds like an inspiration. It can be a very life-changing experience for sure. I remember when I first became an uncle, my oldest niece, and it just expanded what love was for me. And now that I have an adult son, that's expanded in a different way. But it's just great where we can find inspiration from these little people and considering the world that we want it to be and how we want to make it for these young people as they get older. And that we feel responsibility to do that. And you're doing it in a really special and unique way. So you alluded to this a little bit. So let's talk about your background. You're born in Brazil. And so if you can talk about maybe your history, your family, if you can give us a little bit about that story.
I was born in Brazil and I lived there about until I was 12. My mother married an amazing man out in Portugal and she was like, come with me. And I was the first one that went out there. My other sister stayed home. And as I was in Portugal, I always kind of like fell in love with anything beauty. I was very obsessed with makeup growing up. I was very much of a girly girl. And I always just loved playing with everything. Everything makeup just made me so happy. And when the idea of becoming a model presented itself, that was like, this is it. This is what I'm meant to be. This is what I'm supposed to do. And then I lived in Portugal for about 8 to 9 years before I came to America.
Okay.
It took a long time.
Yeah. And did you go right to New York after when you came to America?
I took a little detour. I went a little bit around. I lived in St. Louis for about 1.5 years. And then I lived in Chicago for a year before I came to New York.
All right. So you spent some time in the Midwest.
Yes, I did, actually. I call it my figuring it out years.
Yes. Because
I was still battling a lot of things. I was still trying to unlearn a lot from what I had learned in Europe about myself. And that was the time that I quit modeling for a while because I just couldn't do it anymore. It was either my health or modeling. So I picked myself and I quit modeling for about 5 years. I was just done.
Yes. Wow. What a hard choice that must have been to make between this ideal field. You realize as a young person how beautiful the world is and how you enjoyed all things beauty, but never seeing yourself represented in modeling, but having maybe some attraction to that area. And then this scout comes to you and, like you said, the most cliche way and approaches your mother and you and says you should get into this thing. And you find yourself in this world.
Yeah, I found myself just completely being adored. I was so loved by all the designers in Portugal, and I was so loved by all of the bookers. And they put me very high. They put me in the place of like, this is where you're supposed to be. This is anybody watching. This is the body you're supposed to have. And that for me was acceptance. And validation was incredible until it wasn't, until I became a woman, until I went through puberty. I got my curves, and that was a crime. That was a crime for them. It was just not, it was the worst thing that I could have done. And then all of a sudden I was no longer their number one. I was someone they deemed horrendous. I remember walking into my agency so many times and being called a cow. That was just a normal Tuesday. Or being like, you need to just quit the eating. You need to stop eating. It's not good. Like, we have a lot of designers sending your back, or I had a designer slap a piece of pizza out of my hand once, because his dress was a little bit tight and I was not allowed to be eating. And all of a sudden I see myself into a place where I'm no longer enough. That was my whole value. That was my whole worth. It was where I looked like. And these jobs they were booking me, this was what I was supposed to be doing. And that's when everything changed for me. I started on my eating disorders. I was about 14 years old. And I started losing weight in a very incorrect way. I started completely stop eating, exercising like a crazy, 2-3 hours a day, just running and eating very small portions of food until I got into a point where I was eating maybe 1 toast a day. And that was normal. That was normal life for me, for my friends around me, the girls in this industry who are out there doing the same thing. I had a lot of friends who eat cotton for lunch because it makes them feel fuller for longer. And that was normal life. Just to think that right now, it really blows my mind.
Yes.
Just to think that I've been through that and thought that was normal. And it continually got worse, because it does not matter what you change in your body. If you hate yourself, you hate yourself. Doesn't matter what you look like. And I didn't know this at the time. I was in my forming years. I was in the years where I'm learning everything about myself and who I am in this world. And in those years, which happens to a lot of models, mostly all of them, that's when you're supposed to be told you're beautiful, you're worth it. It does not matter what you look like. I was being told all your value is in your skinny body, and all your value is what you look like, and in the scale. You need to be watching the scale. And it really, really damaged me for a long time, until I got to my breaking point, which it was when I was about 17, 18 years old. I have been in the industry for a little over 3 years. I was incredibly unhealthy. I was drinking. I was doing drugs. I was just completely detached from reality. I just completely hated it. I hated myself. I hated the industry. I started hating the industry, which is insane because I love being a model, and I just didn't take pleasure on it anymore. Every time I see a photo of myself, I was like, yeah, she's huge. She's humongous. Like, how can I be this disgusting, in my own mind? And I remember that's when I hit 90 pounds at 5'10", which it was dangerously low.
Yes.
And it still wasn't enough. I went through all of the diets in the book until I met someone in Portugal who supplied me with pills. And until this day, I don't know what was in them. I'm pretty sure. But I was obsessed. I had a really, really bad case of anorexia and bulimia, and I did not care about myself at all. So I just took them. And that's when I ended up in a hospital for a couple months, where my kidney just gave out. And that was definitely my rock bottom. Where I had to decide if I wanted to live or if I wanted to do modeling, because it was never really enough. The weight, I could keep taking off the weight. It was just never going to be enough. Mm-hmm. And I remember to this day, the doctor looked at me and he said, "You're going to lose your kidney if you keep doing this. It's literally killing you." And I remember in that moment just sitting there thinking, that's okay. If I lose a kidney, I'll weigh less. And just to think of it, right now, that's how bad it got. And it's very, sorry, it's a bit hard to talk about that.
It's okay.
I don't want anybody to go through that. And that's where I was like, okay, I'm going to die if I keep doing this. So my mother, God bless her, a Latina firist of Brazil, was like, hell no. Sit down, not happening. And pulled me out completely of the modeling industry. And it's been a very, very long and painful journey to get over my eating disorders. Yeah. And well, I'm not gonna say that it was fast or easy, or that I am completely healed, because I don't think that happens. Once you have an eating disorder, it's something you battle with for the rest of your life, and it's just something you have to keep working on it every day. But things are better. It does get better.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, first of all.
Yeah.
I think that just takes a lot to be able to put yourself out there to the world like that and share your experience. I can't imagine being I'm certain that plenty of people who are going to listen to this, and including myself, have been in situations that feel almost impossible. And we find ourselves doing things that are out of character, right? That don't align with who we know we are. You even mentioned it's like looking back, even to the point of saying, if I lose a kidney, at least I'll lose a little weight. Like, that's the mindset. Of course, looking back at that that sounds outrageous.
It sounds insane to me right now. But to think that I had those thoughts, I was totally and 100% okay with that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's where the modeling industry took me.
Yeah.
This crazy obsession with this pattern of beauty. I did not only hated my weight, I also hated my skin color for the longest time. I have never been out and about with my friends in a pool or in the beach. I never had that kind of happiness that comes with running in the sun, because for me, I couldn't be darker. I couldn't be, because I had a meeting with a booker from from Milan, sorry. And he told me that I was too dark. He told me that, people your color don't really sell. And that was it for me. I was like, no more sun. We are done with the sun. We don't do that anymore. So I was the kid with all the hats and all the sunblock on the world, trying to stay in the shadows for the longest time. And for me to tell you that it wasn't until this year that I went out in the sun, not caring what kind of color I was. It was this year, 2020. Earlier this year, actually.
So in 2020, you came alive, because that's really right. You're experiencing full life when you can come out of the shadows. You can accept all that the world and nature is going to give you, the color, the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And just to soak it up. That sounds like you've really come alive.
I have. And it has been a long way, but this tiny little steps is just to stop and ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel like I can't go out and get darker? And that was a friend of mine this year before my birthday. And I was like, oh, this sounds really great. We were going to go on a river. We're going to go floating. Apparently it's a big thing. I never went floating before. I had no idea. She's from the Midwest. So the floating's a big thing.
We do.
And she's like, let's go floating. And I was like, I can't be in the sun that long. And then I stopped and I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Why do I think that? And then, I have to unlearn so many behaviors, because in those forming years, that's what I was learning. And I learned that my skin color was bad. It wasn't something that could sell, which let's all be honest here. That's a lie. Okay. We are beautiful. Our melanin is, chef's kiss. And in my mind was like, no, it doesn't sell. And then I stopped myself. I was like, what in the world was I thinking? Right. Give me the river. Give me the floating thing. We're going. Yeah. So it was good. It was really good.
Well, for folks who are not from Central USA, We do something called floating, where you sit in like an inner tube or a raft and you just literally go down a river, eat snacks, drink whatever your preferred beverage you have. I mean,
Yes.
probably in a can, and soak up a lot of sun for hours. And then you just hang, and that's what you do. And you talk, maybe you pull over once in a while and eat, and you just float. And it is such a fun journey. And to Ingrid's point, like, you do get so much sun exposure. I'm, of course, a dark skinned person. And so, I can get darker. I mean, I don't know if I get any darker than I am right now, but I had a good summer being outside. But yeah, you definitely do get darker. And I can also understand that piece for yours is connected to an industry. It's interesting that you have these people who are telling you, oftentimes people are like, well, just get over it, right? Like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Like, the world's going to always say bad things about you. Who cares? But here's the thing: when you're in an industry that's telling you you're not good enough, who you are is not good enough, your skin tone, your weight, you're going into puberty and your body's shifting. It's supposed to be what it's beautifully meant to be, and they're telling you that that's still not good enough. It's like an abusive relationship. It's an abusive relationship with an industry. And the problem with being in abusive relationships is no matter how good you felt about yourself before that relationship, if you stay in it long enough, some of that stink gets on you,
Really
and you start to smell it yourself, and you start to believe it yourself.
And it affects every single aspect of your life. It affected my relationship with my family. It affected my relationship with men. I was 15 years old and I had my first little boyfriend, and I had the most warped vision of myself. And from there on, I went to treat men in a different way that I shouldn't have been treating them that way. But because of how I view myself, that went out into my relationships with my friends, with my family, with my mother, with my father. And it just completely destroys your life. And that's when everyone that says, okay, calm down, it's not brain surgery, it's modeling. And that's where I'm like, you don't understand the amount of damage that one campaign can do to someone, or the amount of damage of a commercial, or, like, I don't know if you remember those commercials back in the day where the girls are like all like pretty and like throw their heads around. It's like hair commercials and all that stuff, where you only have blonde skinny girls doing that. And it takes a toll, because then you look at it as a 14-year-old who's still trying to discover the world, who doesn't know anything about anything. And you look at that and you're like, that's not me. So there it is. Society is telling me that that's not beautiful. So I need to change. And it's big. It's big for a 14-year-old. So I hope that right now the 14-year-olds are seeing and listening to this and seeing that, things change. The ideal of beauty 10 years ago was a skinny girl, skinny blonde girl. And now it's the Kardashians. So like before we were all like, oh my God, I look so big, my bum. And now it's like, can I get a bigger bum? So it's always gonna change. It's always gonna change. You don't have to change. That's one of those things. If you shape yourself to fit into that cookie cutter of the beauty ideal, you're going to lose what makes you special. And there's a lot of little things that might bug you, a little freckle here, a little freckle there, a little, roll here, roll there, but don't change yourself to fit into that. That's when everything goes bad, in my experience.
No, I can appreciate that. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and we'll continue on.
It just takes a minute, and all can go away. Once the switch becomes yesterday, because it's just a...
This podcast is called The Best Worst Thing, and it sounds like we really jumped into a lot of that about your best worst thing story. And so I don't know if there's any more you want to share about that, but kind of what happened, with where do you think was, if it was the hospitalization or what part of that story or anything else that you felt was the best worst thing, how you got through it. We really want to know kind of what pulled you through And then, it sounds, you gave some really good jewels earlier, but what are the key takeaways that you want people to hear from you about this story?
I feel like my best worst thing or moment was definitely being left with nothing. After my hospitalization, I started my ED recovery. And with the recover, it came the pounds, it came the weight. And my agency dropped me out in Portugal. I was no longer a model. So for me, that was the moment that I had to think about, okay, this is it. What are you going to do about it? And I remember my mama telling me, which is very, very strong woman, raised 3 girls. And she told me, Ingrid, if the world does not fit you in it, you're going to build a world of your own. And I'm like, then that's what I got to do. If they say that I'm too fat to be in this, or I'm too big to be in that, then I'm going to build my own. I'm going to where the changes is happening, and I'm going to do this a different way. But I'm going to do it as a healthy person. So that's why I took a break of modeling for so long. I went into recovery. I worked on myself, on my own self-image before I went in what became known as plus size modeling. I went into an agency out in St. Louis. Beautiful Sarah Linda, which is a very good friend of mine now, was the booker at the time. And I remember walking into her office thinking, I might not be strong enough to do this, but I will be strong enough to walk out of here the moment she asked me to lose weight. That was one thing I could do in that moment because I was still recovering. And I remember walking in, did my interview, walked out, and I was like, that's it. If you ask me to lose weight, I'm out. And I remember she saying like, lose? I don't think so. We want you to be a plus size model. And that's when everything kind of changed. I started doing my research and learn about Ashley, who was already making so much waves back then. And I was like, okay, this is something I can do, but there is a problem. I am not a size 16. I am not a size 18. I'm a size 10. So I'm there in the middle. I'm lost there in the middle. And I was still like trying to figure it out where my place was. And there was no place. There was no place for women there was barely place for plus size women. Barely. Back then, 5 years ago? And what about the girls in the middle? What about the 10s and the 12s and the 14s? There was no place for us. So she was like, I'm not going to ask you to lose weight, but we're going to just, try to work with the plus size industry. And that's when everything kind of started. I started wearing padding, which is a very, very common thing in the plus size industry, where they put paddings on you and all of that stuff. And it always felt wrong for me. It felt wrong. It felt like, okay, here I am again, pretending to be someone I'm not. This is not who I am. And then I went on, fell in love with lifting, which was a big help to my mental health. Put on a lot of muscle, which very proud of that part. Yes. And now I'm a proud owner of a size 12, 14 body, exactly how God meant it. And I've been working nonstop ever since, without the padding, without any of it. It's just been great. It really has. Just to be able to do this as myself and as my own size, no bigger, no smaller.
So you gave us a quote from your mother about her saying, if the world that you're trying to go into doesn't want to fit you in, then maybe you should build your own world.
Yeah.
That's a pretty powerful statement.
Yeah. She's a powerful woman.
It sounds like you sound very fortunate to have somebody like that. That's your mom's words should go out to many people who are listening to this.
I agree. She's the best. She's always been so supportive, and she's a fiery woman. Yeah, you're going to hear her whenever she speaks for sure. And it was definitely a changing point for me because I went on to make my own. I went on to come out here when I came to New York 2.5 years ago, I had one thing in mind. I sat down with Muse and with Becca, which is someone who inspired me so much. She was a model before. Now she's the vice president of Muse. And I sat down with her and I said, this is what I want. I want to change things. I want to be out here showing the world that girls with my skin color, my size, they can do this too. We are beautiful too. So, and she has been nothing but supportive, and she made most of my dreams come true. You know, I just walked in New York Fashion Week 2 years in a row. Yeah,
Yes.
strong. There was a lot of firsts since I came to New York. My first time working for Chromat was a big moment for me, walking in New York Fashion Week for the first time. That's any girl's dream that is in this industry. It's to be New York Fashion Week. And I walked for Chromat in Siriano, who is just a delightful person. And that actually believes that we are beautiful, because there is tokenism here as well. So that's another thing to talk about. And to be with brands that actually believe that this is beautiful, your curves are beautiful, you are beautiful, it has definitely been life-changing.
That's amazing and inspirational. So Sarah, when you walked in that room with Sarah, even though you were just recovering, which is a pretty sensitive place to be, having really your bottom line walk away point of saying, if she asks me to drop 1 ounce, I'm walking out of here.
Yeah.
And being willing to say, like, this is my boundary was huge, super important. Another really important tip for people about really knowing very clearly what your boundaries are, what you're willing to put up with, what you're willing not to put up with. And the fact that she not only appreciated it, but she elevated it and said, heck no, you're perfect. We're going to put you in this area, which gave you a chance to really discover and learn more about that. I also love the idea of the traditional kind of work in which people use padding and all these other things, how that still didn't feel right. There's this thing called dissonance, cognitive dissonance, when things are misaligned internally and externally, when you're doing things that don't necessarily match up with your values and how you feel. And so you said, no, this is not good enough for me. And so you're like, well, let me figure out how to maximize my body in ways that I feel comfortable and confident in, and in turn lifting weights and getting stronger and being naturally who you are made you feel that much more. And in fact, that's the part that you can be consistent about. We talk about this always, that, you know, being you consistently, you can uphold that the rest of your life. Being a fake version of you, putting on a mask, it wears you down. I mean, it clearly wore you down early.
It really does, because at some point, really, that mask is going to fall apart. Mm-hmm. And then you're just left with what? Absolutely nothing, because you didn't put the effort to understand yourself, to understand that you are beautiful the way that you are, that your size doesn't define you. It doesn't define who you are. I am so much more than my fat. And that's one of those things people say, oh, I had so many hate comments on the internet. And that's when I really try to work through that, of being like, when I was at the Chromat show, Vogue posted my photo, Vogue Beauty, posted my photo in a bikini on a show. And the comments were absolutely horrible. And they were like, you're fat, you don't belong there. And then that phrase, you're fat, really stuck with me. Because to me, I'm kind. I'm a nice friend. I am a loving person. I am someone who will jump through fire for you. I will do anything for the people I love. I am kind. I am not just fat. So you're just literally putting me in this little box that you want to contain me on. I have fat. That's it. It doesn't define who I am as a person. And then I feel like it just goes beyond that. So that's what I love seeing right now in the industry happening. A lot of brands are going to that. They are no longer just going for a nice face or a nice body. And just like MAC right now was going after who are you as a person, you know, your personality, who that's who we align with. And I think that we're going to the right direction. Seriously. I can't wait to see in a couple of years from now the amazing things that we're going to achieve.
Me too. And I can't wait to see all the amazing things that you have to achieve. I can tell you just based on this conversation alone and getting to know a little bit more about you as a person, I already saw the beautiful pictures. You're gorgeous.
Thank you.
But you're also perfect. And you're perfect just the way you are, which is just amazing. And I hope that the love that you have for yourself is something that will radiate and connect with other people. I mean, like you said, I have a freckle here, or I know all the little things that I'm insecure about, but that's just one little feature about me that doesn't tell the whole story.
Yeah.
And what you're reminding me too is that we are beautiful people, just the way we are, perfectly made, and so you get to do it on a very high level, at a very large scale, which is amazing, so that so many people can see it. So I'm super impressed by meeting you. I'm super impressed by hearing your story. I shared some of your Instagram. What's the best way people can find you?
You can follow me on Instagram, which I think you already gave them my Instagram. And I'm also on TikTok right now. Yes, I am. I know. We all joined. Okay, let's not judge. Through quarantine, we all got it.
I got a lot of people my age on TikTok, so I'm not hating on it at all.
I know. I have so much fun, and I love doing body positive videos on TikTok because I just really wanted to get it out there for the new generation that's coming out right now that's completely obsessed with TikTok. My niece, I know that she is. So I was like, wherever you are, I'm going to be there to tell you, you are good enough. That, don't listen to the people who want to put you in a little box, because you're so much more than that. If you sharp all of your edges, you're just going to be like the same. And who wants to be like that?
There it is. Perfect way to end it. Thank you so much, Ingrid.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you for listening to the Best Worst Thing podcast. I'm your host, Josh Walewa. Music is produced by Josh One. You can follow him at BoomNote on Instagram and Twitter, and Josh One on Spotify. Our episodes are edited by Cool Jets Audio and Visual. You can follow them at Cool Jets AV on Instagram. Our marketing is designed by Francesca Daniels. You can find her at FrankandKitty24 on Instagram. And our overall design is by Inspired Design with Ryan Daniels. You can find them at getinspired.design on Instagram. Thank you for listening to The Best Worst Thing.
This one's for the